At long last, UnOrdinary Season 2, Chapter 1 is here. I've been patiently waiting for about a month now for the continuation of UnOrdinary because that cliffhanger was something else. Seeing John literally defeat all of the royals, basically decimate the hierarchy, I was very interested to see where the story's going to go. How is the school going to react to him, etc. I've been very excited to see the beginning of Season 2. Sadly, we didn't get everything that we all wanted within this chapter because we didn't get to see how the school really reacts to John, but there was still a lot of setup within the first chapter that makes me extremely excited, and I cannot wait to see where the story is going to go. Now, I do know that apparently there is some form of Fast Pass, that, like, if you have a Fast Pass with Webtoon, you're able to read, like, 3 chapters ahead or something. I might need to look into that, honestly, because I really do like this series, and I would like to, you know, see what's going on and, you know, keep up to date with whatever the writer is doing. But, enough with that for now. The point, though, is that UnOrdinary Season 2 is finally here, and if you have yet to read the chapter yourself, I recommend you to stop this video, go read it. It's really freaking good. It's really good. And I don't want to spoil you because, you know, I think many of you that have been fans of this series for a while and those that recommended me to even read this series have probably been waiting for the continuation of UnOrdinary for a while. I believe UnOrdinary's actual final chapter for Season 1 was back in August or maybe even early summer or something. I don't know exactly when the final chapter came out. I just know that it's been a lot longer than what I've been waiting for. For instance, I only waited a month. I could imagine that maybe you guys have been waiting for about 3 to 4 months, which I couldn't imagine the agony that all of you have been feeling while figuring out what's going to happen next with John. So, I'm just glad to see it back. So anyways, let's get right into it. This chapter has quite a few things that go down that we can get from it. We have the stuff with Sarah and her overall reaction to John, to Elaine kind of stirring the pot a little bit, to the principal knowing more than he should, or being obviously someone that seems very shady and potentially someone that's going to be going up against the government slash hierarchy of the world. There is a lot of things that is building up within this chapter, and I'm excited. So let's start off with John and Sarah, because I think that is the biggest thing that everybody is going to want to talk about first, because it was like the highlight at the end of Season 1, with John decimating Arlo, taking down the royals. You know, he effectively established himself as the #1, the king of the school. He was the #1. Nobody should mess with him at all. And obviously we know, as the readers of the story, that Sarah was watching John do what he did. Now, it's clear from this chapter that John isn't really aware that Sarah knows everything, but I'm willing to bet he's probably going to find out very quickly. But the point, though, is that John is still trying to remain in a position to help out Sarah, give her this encouragement and all that, while Sarah is very conflicted right now because she now has seen a John that she never knew, and it really makes all of her emotions and everything that she's been through with him very complicated. Like, the whole panel, the scene we saw within Chapter 1 of Season 2, where you see how his face is completely shadowed out, completely darkened, it basically emphasizes that Sarah is not able to see him anymore, see what type of person he is, because he has a mask on. She doesn't know who he is anymore. And even though we, as the readers of UnOrdinary, know who John really is, why he's like he is, and what emotions he really does have towards Sarah, in her position, it makes sense why she is acting like she does, because she was always under the impression that John was powerless. He was a powerless boy that was always getting picked on, having his bones shattered, etc. But even though all these horrific things happened to him, he never backed down. He was always someone that continued to fight back. He never let it get him down, and he continued to smile, and he hung out with Sarah. And Sarah was very fascinated with him. So it was definitely a different turn of events when she found out that this boy that was always the weak one turned out to be incredibly powerful and was even able to stomp the royals, which is the top. So, yeah, you can understand the shock. She is going through a lot of shock from that, and after everything that happened towards the end of Season 1 with her losing her power, but also finding out that, John was encouraging her, and then find out that John, actually, the reason why he's probably survived this long is because of his power, it obviously would upset you. So I understand Sarah's perspective. I understand why she's upset. However, Elaine is making things very complicated, and it's definitely not going to help out John and Sarah's relationship. So let's talk about it. I find it very fascinating that Elaine basically kind of threw John under the bus and didn't really mention the fact of all the horrific things that Elaine, Arlo, and everybody else did to John before he finally snapped and started to use his power. I find it very fascinating that she decided to, not talk about that. She decided to completely omit that little detail, because let's go back to the beginning of UnOrdinary and when John really started to utilize his power. That was when he was someone that wanted to remain a part of the hierarchy or stay out of it, but not really, be a part of it because he didn't want to destroy it. He realized that if he was to be introduced within it, he would completely decimate. And Arlo eventually did figure this out towards the end of Season 1, but obviously too late. But basically, we know that John was willingly allowing himself for a very long time, allowing himself to have his bones crushed, bullied, etc. All these horrific things happening to him every single day, but he never used his power. He may have been actively reading what they're capable of to be able to dodge them in a way, but overall, he was never using his power to fight back. He was willingly accepting his body to get completely shattered and broken. So John was never using his power in those fights that Sarah thinks he was. That the reason why he had so much confidence and the reason why he was able to win, etc., it wasn't because John's ability. He was still willingly allowing himself to get destroyed. It just, he, had that power all along. And the only reason why he used it is because Arlo then pressured him to finally just snap, and that's what happened. So, the John that Sarah knows isn't a fake John. Even though he has omitted details, he hasn't told her everything exactly what has happened, who he isn't necessarily being fake with Sarah. And Sarah has not realized that. And it probably will take a very long time for her to realize that fact that John was never really being fake with her. He just wasn't giving every little detail because the issues were complicated. And I do think that this is definitely going to lead, John down a very dark path. Because if Sarah does decide to completely say you're no longer my friend, want nothing to do with him, it definitely could lead John down to the same path he had back in his previous school, to when he acted out and even hurt his own friends because of power, etc. It could definitely go down that rabbit hole once again, which is definitely not going to be good. And I really do hope that someone is able to pull John out of this darkness, and honestly, the only person I could definitely see that's able to do this at this point in time besides Sarah would definitely be Arlo. And the reason why I think that is because Arlo, he knows what he's done. Arlo definitely has matured and gained a lot of character development since the beginning of the story, and I think he's the only one there that could potentially fix, Sarah and John's relationship, because he will probably tell Sarah the truth, that he's the cause for all of this of what happened, and basically everything that's happened thus far is thanks to him, and John just did not want to use his power, and I think that is the only way. But backing up for a second though, John right now, he's in a very delicate situation because he's on thin ice. He might get expelled if he continues to act out, because if the people outside of the school, for instance, the people part of the hierarchy, the government, etc., find out, it can lead to John going through all sorts of problems, getting interrogated and all that, and the school, looking very bad in the public eye. It's just not something they want. So, John, he can't really act out as much as he has, but as we know, John is not someone that necessarily can be controlled. He's not someone that can really just stop when he gets the blood flowing and he starts getting angry. So, yeah. Now, I do want to talk about the principal. So, the principal talks to John within this chapter, and basically tells him, like, okay, John, you sent people to the hospital, there's a lot of people in the hospital right now, and we're trying to keep it hush-hush, but we don't want, you know, the public finding out about what you have done, we don't want, you know, the government, etc., finding out what you have done, and how the hierarchy is completely destroyed, because it makes them look bad, and it's very clear that the principal is doing something very, very shady behind the scenes. I don't necessarily think the principal is evil. I do think that he has other plans, maybe plans to be able to completely change the world in some way, and he's definitely wanting to use John for that in some way. We just don't really know yet, but the principal definitely has a plan, a major plan, because he just seems to really want John, because John's technically someone that could easily break the hierarchy given some time, if he had enough opportunity, etc., and maybe he might be wanting to use John for that fact, to be able to change the world entirely, and I talked about this in my, you know, overall thoughts of Season 1 that I uploaded about a month ago. So, yeah, I guess let's talk about the final thing, which is the fact that we didn't get to see the school's reaction to John. That is something I'm really looking forward to, because you see, after everything that's happened throughout Season 1 and what John has been through, we know that the school has done horrific things to him. And I wonder how many of those individuals will react and act towards John when they find out what he has done. Like, will they cower before him and ask for forgiveness? You know, what exactly is going to happen when everybody realizes that John has been basically the strongest there since the very beginning? I wonder if they're going to start freaking out, etc. So, I'm very curious about that. I'm very curious to see how the school reacts to John, because it was a public display. It's definitely no secret at this point of what actually happened. But, I think I want to wrap up this video here. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. Because for some reason, even if you subscribe, you don't always get notified. So, if you want to get notified, if you want to help me out a lot, you know, please hit that bell icon and also leave a like. And with that, Chibi out.